it's Mark Roberts. We're here on Let's Get Into Entertainment. We're going to get into the business of entertainment today. You know, it's rare, Tootie, when you have someone that was the beginning, like the epicenter of something. That's very rare. You could say there's lots of people that invent stuff or come up with stuff or further something. Yeah. But today, Tony Alva's here, and we're going to be talking about how skateboarding and the business of having fun and surfing turned into a business. Yeah. And that business ended up reaching all around the world. And as a result, you know, skateboards and surfboards and sponsorships and business and shoe sales. I mean, you're talking about something that permeated the world. And even today, skateboarding is one of the biggest sports in the world. There's X Games, there's superstars of the sport. There's now interactive stuff where you have gaming being a part of this. So today we're going to chop it up with Tony Alva. Hey, welcome to Let's Get Into Entertainment. We're going to talk the business of entertainment today. Today's a really special day. I got Tootie here on my left. I've got Dave on the ones and twos. Whoop. Thank you guys for being here.
I love the story when you were telling me when you first met our guest. Go.
Well, first, let's welcome him. Tony Alva's here today. Welcome, Tony.
That's right.
Cool. Appreciate you. Hey, thanks, what I did do is I thought, hey, I want to have Tony Alva on the show. And I thought, I said, I'm going to call him. So I started looking through my files. I thought, we've been living here for 20 years. I must have his number somewhere. Looking through my phone, like nothing, like zero, not even an email. And then I'm like, okay, so I must have something on Katie. So I'm looking, nope, nothing. So I decided, all right, well, I guess I'll just walk, like old school, walk up to his house and be like, hey, yo, Tony. So I walk out in front of his house last night around 5 o'clock and I'm like, hey, Tony, you home?
That's like you went back to Montebello, East LA, dude.
The great part is he just walked out and said, hey, what's going on?
No, I like the story though, when you lived by him for how many years?
Yeah, I moved in with Ann here. Shoot, it must have been 98. I'm sorry, about 98, 99. Oh, wow. And I lived here for a while, and I knew that there was a surfer that surfed every day that lived across the street. And, you know, at first I didn't feel comfortable saying hi to everybody. So I would see him, you know, he'd get his stuff. He'd walk into his house. I'd walk into my house. So we didn't really say hello. And this went on for a couple of years. But then one day he's walking out of the garage with like this big bag, and the bag says Alva on it. And I'm like, and I stopped in the middle of the street. I said, Tony Alva? And he turns around and he's like, yeah. I was like, dude, you've been here 2 years. We've been living across the street from each other. I didn't know it was you. Oh, that's amazing.
It's right when I started making surfboards and the bags had a big Alva logo on it.
Is that true?
I'm pretty sure it was one of the surfboard bags.
Dude. Probably startled the poor guy.
I think he was surprised that I hadn't said anything before. And you know what's funny is a couple of months after that he said, he was like, I thought it was kind of cool that, you know, you never reacted to me at all, like for 2 years.
We like our anonymity at certain levels, but I used to watch him every couple of years bring home a new baby in swaddling clothes. So we've known each other for a while. Yeah, I saw the babies come. I remember Cash in particular. So I mentioned that to him. I go, man, Mark, that seems like a couple of years ago, dude. He goes, no. He goes, Cash is like almost 14 years old, dude. I was like, oh, wow. I was like, I guess so. I guess you're right.
Yeah, time flies. Yeah. I know everyone has talked about Dogtown and Z-Boys.
But we won Spirit Awards, Sundance, and the Toronto Film Festival.
Yeah. I mean, it was a great movie. I watched it last night, and I still felt like a lot of the editing that happened.
I think the editing was the strength.
Yeah.
It was Paul Crowder. Yeah. He was an English guy and was a drummer.
Music, too.
And he edited to the music. That was part of the key to the success, I think. Yeah. And it was classic rock and roll.
And he moved within the frame. So you had like a picture, you had the classic rock and roll, you had the picture, and then you had like the board, and then you had the pool, and then you had stuff happening in the background, and the camera would move to the people in the background, and you'd see like
I think a lot of that was Craig Stesick too, though. There was another art director involved, Craig Stesick, and he took a lot of the photos.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of them were black and white.
Yeah. Amazing. And then there was editing where you could tell like they were flipping through a book. Yeah. And that became part of the editing style.
When it got crazy, it started flipping faster. Yeah. It'd go like a little fast. And it had the burnt look on the edges like celluloid.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And I may have seen it at Sundance.
The first time I saw it was at Sundance. I waited.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I waited.
That was amazing.
Because I don't like to see things when they're half cooked.
Yeah.
It's like cookie dough, man. It's like, dude, I don't want it gooey. I want it like
you want it finished. You know,
I want it cooked.
But I watched it. I watched it last night, and I just kept thinking to myself, it's rare when you hear someone say something like, had there not been a drought in California, had that not happened, who knows when people would start skating.
Anything vertical that was made out of concrete. Because, as skateboarders during that era, we were just surfers looking for a concrete wave. And empty swimming pools were the perfect concrete wave. And they still are.
And
they're still the best. That's why they build them in skate parks now, because they're emulating what we did in the backyards.
Do you remember, I grew up in East LA, right near Montebello. There used to be a skate park in Montebello.
Right next to the freeway.
Yeah.
It was on the side of the freeway.
But that was a long one. That was like...
It was a little, almost like a drainage ditchy kind of thing, and it had little humps and lumps in it.
Yeah.
But nowadays, they're like full on. They have everything, and it's all terrain, and it's designed to accommodate kids of all levels of skateboarding. Right. And then certain kids are more street oriented, so they stick to one side of the park, and then the other kids ride the bowls. But the best ones are the guys that skate the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like when you went with me to Culver City, how I warmed up on one side, but then ended up in the bowl.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we like to do.
Dude, we parted the water. Like it was like walking with Moses, dude. We walked into the skate park and people just turned and it opened up, and Tony walked right up to the bowl and jumped in and just started going. And people were like, they couldn't believe it, right? It was a trip. It was a lot of fun.
Did you jump in with them, Robert?
No, but I have a horrible story, and I'm going to confess it here. So Cash was young, and he had taken like a skateboarding class for a week, and we decided to take the skateboards to Santa Monica. And I'm not thinking, right? I'm not thinking. I got everything on, and I'm with him, and he must be 6 or 7, and we're in Venice, and I'm skating with him, just flats. And then he's like, "Oh, Dad, there's the skate park." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So we get all the way up past the gate into the skate park. And I'm like, I'm fucking 47 years old, and I've never skated like a normal person, in this kind of thing. So he looks at me and he's like, "Let's go, Dad." And I was like,
"Your 6-year-old kid, because you got to do it."
I started backing. I backed out. Yeah, I said,
"Good for you."
I said, I don't know.
A man's got to know his limits.
I said, I don't know.
What is that? That's from a famous movie, isn't it? A man's got to know his limits. There you go. That's Clint. He knew it right away. Clint Eastwood. A man's got to know his limits. Isn't it from Dirty Harry?
Yep.
It's one of my big regrets, man.
I thought you were going to say you got down on like your knee, and then you said, "Let's go, son.
Let's go, buddy." On my butt, just right now, dude.
I think it was when the guy got killed at the end, and it crushed him or something, and that's when Clint Eastwood goes, "A man's got to know his limits."
That's right. Exactly. So I knew my limits that day, but I was like, I
know my limits too, believe me. After being a professional skateboarder for this long, it's like I just refined my technique, because I'm telling you, there's stuff that the kids are doing nowadays that I look at and I'm just like, wow.
But do you remember turning to me the day that we went to that skate park and you rode in the thing and you had a really great day, and
I did have a good day.
You turned to me and you were like, "That was a good day today." He was not always like that.
Yeah. Because any day really where you don't take a bad fall is a good day in skateboarding. Because in order to be a professional skateboarder, you have to be able to fall. And the other thing is perseverance is because, it's like that saying, I think Dwayne Wade said or whatever, it's like fall 7, get up 8.
Yeah.
It's like that kind of thing with skateboarding. You have to have that unbreakable spirit thing. You can break my body, but you can't break my spirit.
Yeah.
So skateboarders, that's why I think skateboarding and kids in general really love that as an outlet too, because there's no rules, there's no team, there's no coach yelling at you. There's nothing really except for you and the board.
Right.
And the lines are just abstract lines. You do whatever you're feeling in the moment, which is a sense of freedom that I don't think you can get from much more other than maybe like other board sports like surfing and,
Yeah.
Or I would think snowboarding. People love snowboarding. I've always lived at the beach, so I'm a surfer and a skateboarder.
Yeah.
And then music has always been a big part of what we do. We've always been into anything edgy, like new and different as far as music goes. But I think the roots of rock and roll are still really important too in all kinds of music.
It's all part of it, I mean, look, I got to go back with you because as I was watching the doc, I just kept thinking, there was no rules to what you guys were doing. You were surfing. You started skateboarding.
Skateboarding was revolutionizing itself, but at the same time, culture went with it because I think the youth culture, the connection to skateboarding has always been directly connected to street culture. That's why, like when they say with skateboarders, especially one that's been into it as long as I have, that we have a lot of street cred because of the fact that that's where we came from. But also just to be able to market yourself and like the whole brand thing that happened in the 70s, with my board company, helping guide vans and other shoe companies in a positive direction to where they're actually making product for kids that are into that kind of culture. I mean, that opened up a whole new door for not only like a new business, but also for like a new, I would say, lifestyle.
Right. But before you got into that, there was like just you guys. And, I love the whole part about in Santa Monica, there was all these schools that were built on a hill. So they had to fill them in. So there was all these hills
that when the rain came and everything came, and then even for the kids with the playing ball on the side, everything would be like bounce off the walls and go back into the flats and then down the canyon.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of the reason that's why they did that. But what they did was unwittingly, they created the first skate parks for us.
Right.
Because they were concrete waves. Yeah. And we just started practicing our moves that we would normally be doing at the beach when the waves were good on the banks of the schoolyards. And then till they chased us out and tried to kick us out, and it led into a cat and mouse thing with the authorities. Right. But skateboarders are the most rebellious and anti-authoritative group of kids you'll ever come into contact with. And even to this day, they're still that way. Like if you look at part of the videos that are online nowadays and stuff, it's kids getting into interactions with security guards, people on the streets, whatever,
slicing off locks.
It's just the way they are. And it's always been that way. And I guess I'm one of the original rebels when it comes to that. But, as I gotten older, I become a little bit more, I would say, just respectful towards, like, I would say, other people's property. But back when we were kids, we weren't. Right. We were sneaking into people's backyards. We were skating in their pools when they weren't home or when the houses were abandoned. We were cutting holes in the fences and jumping over into, schoolyards and drainage ditches, riding empty pipes that were out in the middle of the desert where there was construction crews that were coming and going. I mean, we did whatever we could do just to get out there and say that we had ridden, these things that were not made for skateboarding, but were perfect for skateboarding.
I have a picture that you're going to sign today where it's one of those tubes that they put underneath the ground. Yeah. And it's I don't know, it must be like 30 feet tall.
Yeah, they're the Amaron pipes.
Yeah, you're riding inside of it.
They used them to supply the water to the places like Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, you're 3/4 of the way up.
Places were not livable.
Yeah.
They would ship the water through those pipes so we would find out where those factories were before they had actually put them in the ground, and we would go out there and skate those pipes. And that's probably what that photo is. But we would have to drive like a day or two to get out there to those places.
And then would you stay there in your car and
yeah. Or we'd just hook up with like the local skate, kind of either the guys or the girls that were like
find you.
Yeah, and we'd hook up and have a big party that night and crash out, couch surf in our way into like the community.
Yeah. Here's the crazy thing about what you guys did is that a lot of times what you're getting into as a kid, and you get into it because you'd like some fame, you like some money. You guys didn't think about that. And all of a sudden, this organization of people that wanted a piece of this business and wanted a piece of you guys and wanted to monetize what you guys were doing came into the picture. And as a result of that, a few of you guys adapted and a few of you guys did not.
That's true.
So, for people that are out there doing businesses or doing things that are innovative, that are brand new, that all of a sudden industry shows up, business people show up, and they're like, you know what? This is a business. We can turn this into something that's shoes, that's skateboards, that's surfboard, and that's what they did. How did you deal? Because, I see your interviews and I can see that you're a businessman at 16. You're already, your mind's already going.
Well, I started as an entrepreneur at 19.
Yeah.
And then I started my own business because I basically was in the right place at the right time. And I ran into some guys that were not only good at running production and they were using Scandinavian lamination wood processes to make lighter, stronger boards. And we started making skateboards together.
Were you interested in business though, as it showed?
Not really, no, but I had the right guys to help run the business and do it. And all I did was go out and do what I do best. But that was the perfect kind of promotion and marketing. Is that I was actually out there in public doing what I do best, and that's surfing and skateboarding. And then when punk rock music came in, I had a band. I was out playing gigs and skating and doing all that. And so basically I was the test pilot, and those guys, but I worked with them by giving them feedback and being a test pilot. Is I worked with them in design, right? But I didn't actually go out hands-on and make the boards. The boards were made, especially when we went into mass production. They were made in different wood shops that were geared towards making laminated wood and actually being able to cut the templates, sand them, press them, do everything that they had to do. And then the last stage was that we would put that grip tape over that square of paint that we had on the deck.
Yeah.
And then that was my brand, it was like a flame colored logo that said Alva. And on the bottom, we just did a basic one-tone Alva logo on the bottom. We kept it like a less is more thing.
Yeah.
And the boards just sold, like, I'd say we sold millions of boards the first couple of years.
It was an incredible, by the way, it's an incredible logo. The Alva
well, I still make those boards, and I still even do the retro ones.
The OG.
And they're one of the most popular boards still, like 40 years later. That's one of the top sellers still.
I've got 3 of your boards.
Yeah. Well, people want those original ones still. They actually ride them again because they want the thrill, the feeling of that, like
original board.
Just really just the pure essence of being on a skateboard, and that's what those boards give you.
So you did start your own business.
I basically did a movie with Universal that was directed by George Gage and produced by Dick Wolf, who went on to like television fame of it. So I ended up doing a movie at 19 years old with Leif Garrett and Alan Garfield and Kathleen Lloyd and like all of these people that were in the movie. Orson Bean, I think, was in it as one of the
Teen
announcers.
Beat magazine.
Yeah, Teen Beat. That was Leif. He was the star.
That's right.
And so then what happened was we used a lot for the stunts and a lot of the events that were part of the movie was we used professional skateboarders.
Right.
But I was one of the principal characters because I was like the bad boy on the team.
Right.
That was called the LA Wheels that Leif Garrett was on.
Right.
And yeah, we filmed it all in LA pretty much too.
Could Leif skate?
He learned quick.
He had to learn
fast, as most actors do. Like we were talking about Victor. Victor learned quick too. I had to teach him how to stay on a board when we did Lords of Dogtown. We had, Emil Hirsch and like Heath Ledger was one of our principal characters. It was close to the end of his career too. So yeah, a lot of the actors had a little bit of an ability to stay on board, but most of them we had to teach from the ground up just how to get from point A to point B.
Right.
And then we would have the stunt guys come in, and I was always one of the stunt guys, but I also ended up being an authenticity consultant when it came down to doing the feature film that followed the documentary.
Yeah,
and because I worked with Catherine Hardwick, and she was like a good friend of mine. She trusted me.
Because Roberts had Lopez play a soccer player in the movie, and I played soccer all over the world, and he did him bad. I mean, Lopez is a friend of the show, but Lopez dribbling a soccer ball down the field
didn't work.
It didn't work, dude. Put him in a boxing ring, it works. Put him on a wrestling mat, it works.
Who taught you guys how to skateboard? Who taught you what you were doing?
We had a natural ability for it, but at the same time, I think we were self-taught through emulating just what was going on around us. All of our heroes were surfers and stuff. So we just emulated what the surfers were doing on waves, but we did it on concrete.
Yeah.
And then we started to realize that we were surpassing even what they could do on the waves, taking it to a new level. And then finally what happened was with the new terrain was that we started flying in the air and actually doing aerials, and they weren't really doing that on waves yet and stuff. The aerial thing was a completely revolutionary and radical place to go with skateboarding. And that's where we ended up taking it. And I was one of the first guys to be documented actually landing.
Dude, you were the first guy to ever come fully out of one
of the first guys to be documented doing it. I think there was other guys doing it at the time, but they didn't have photographers there to capture it.
All right.
And also I was in the limelight because of the fact that I was a competitive skateboarder and I had a track record that spoke for itself. And by the time I was 19 years old, I was the men's overall world professional skateboard champion, which was the men's division, but at 19. So I competed against men, even though I was not even close. I could barely grow a caterpillar mustache at the time, but I was the men's world champion at a very young age. And that was 5 events in one, like a decathlon thing.
Yeah.
So you had to be really good at every facet to be that guy.
Yeah.
And that's what skateboarding, I think, has been based upon since then.
Well, vertical skating is where it continues to be now, right? So you came out of the bowl, they documented it, and then years later, the X Games, it's all about, how much air can you get, how far out can you? I mean, even in snowboarding, it's all about coming out.
All of those tricks came from the basic principles of just doing an air in a swimming pool. That's where it came from. That was the beginning. That was like, there's the chicken and the egg, which came first. I mean, surfers nowadays are doing what skateboarders did.
That's true. Yeah.
Because they've seen that skateboarders are capable of it, and they're like, okay, we can do that now too. And boards have gotten lighter, and just the guy that does in like competition when it comes to surfing nowadays, it's like aerials are part of the repertoire now.
Well, skateboarding defies gravity. I mean, if you watch some of these guys, in particular, like, you know, I don't follow skateboarding that much, but I did do a show with Paul Rodriguez Jr.
He's a great kid,
and I remember watching like the slow-mo work that they would do with him, and I just couldn't really, like, my mind couldn't wrap itself around the idea that your foot and the speed and the gravity could make a board do something like that, like flip, and while you're in the air, like you land. Well,
really, what we're doing is manipulating gravity more than defying it.
Right.
We use it.
You use
it as a tool. And, you know, what comes up must go down. But when you come down, the trick is, especially with kids like Paul, is make the landing, you know, is landing it. I mean, it's easy to do a lot of things like just get out there and get into the air, but to actually land it and skate away, that involves grace, and that involves like repetition and practice, and, like I said earlier, perseverance.
So the subculture, though, started here in Southern California. You guys are a part of it, right?
I would say, yeah, pretty much the whole world is influenced by Southern California culture because of the fact that surfing and skateboarding came from here, and not to mention our connection to rock and roll, especially after the British invasion with like that whole, you know, with the Beatles and psychedelia and all that stuff.
Going off of what you're saying, they had a photographer, world-class photographer, writing articles in magazines that were going all over the world.
Yeah.
And people were seeing like these guys come out of, you know, swimming pools, and they were seeing like this style like that was coming out of California. You saw these guys partying with rock stars and going to Hollywood parties and being with celebrities, and it changed it so much. It turned, and, you know, again, I have to come back to the idea that it became a business that no one expected it to become. I mean, you know, look, how soon did Vans come to you after you started doing this stuff?
Well, Vans was one of the first companies, I think, on a corporate level. Well, they weren't corporate at the time. They were mom and pop shop.
They were.
They had little mom and pop stores on the corners. They had one on 19th and Wilshire in my neighborhood on the west side. And they had one down in Venice and one like in Mar Vista. They had like little stores here and there.
Yeah.
And what happened was we were going in there buying one shoe at a time. I was, at least. And it didn't matter what color. I just needed the one that I was dragging all the time on the back that was wearing out. And Steve Van Doren, who was only a few years older than me at the time, convinced his father and the people that were running the business to sell us one shoe at a time. And then so we eventually started telling him, look, you got to make us shoes, you know, and beef them up a little, and make us something for skateboarding, because all the skaters are wearing them. We love your shoes. They're affordable. They're durable. They're the right style. Everything's cool. But, you know, you guys need to build one for skateboarding. And they actually listened to us and eventually started to design and manufacture a shoe that was made for skateboarding. It was the off-the-wall version of Vans.
That's what I was going to ask you. So Off the Wall came after you guys were...
Yeah, it came like in the mid to late 70s.
Right.
And Stacy Peralta got sponsored before I did, because I was already kind of on my own, doing my own thing, and I was getting offers and sponsorship from different manufacturers that were more like sports-related shoe companies. Yeah. But those shoes never really worked that well for skateboarding like Vans did. So I ended up going back to where I started with Vans, and then we came to an agreement. And ever since then, I mean, especially in the last like 20 years or so, I've been one of their #1 ambassadors, like worldwide, as you know, Vans footwear, like not only a team rider, but somebody that's seen where they've come from and where they're going and what they stand for today. You know, so that's one of my only like kind of real day jobs, is that I'm an ambassador and a team rider for Vans.
When you think about being 19 and what you know now, would you have handled the business of what was coming at you differently?
Definitely. I mean, because, I mean, let's put it this way. There's no regrets. Everything that happened back then is what got me here. But if I could have found some of the paths that I found in my life through, instead of making mistakes, as many as I did, and paying the dues that I had to pay, you know, I would change that. But you know what? There really is no way to do that. And I can't live in the past.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do constantly is just make progress, you know, and I find that other people, places, and things are out of my control. So the main thing I need to work on is myself. And I think that eventually what I found was, instead of using drugs and alcohol for my spiritual search in life, because I knew that I was looking for something like spiritually, especially coming from my Mexican ancestry, is that I always felt like, well, tequila and magic mushrooms, that'll get me to where what I'm looking for. I mean, I could have Krishna on one side and Jesus on the other, and like, but you find out that's a facade and that's purely an illusion, and so for me, what I found was that through prayer and meditation, due to having some perception shifts in my life, which I call spiritual awakening, it just came from clarity. I had to do all that other stuff in order to find out that it really didn't work for me on the long term part of my life. As far as what my goal in life was, it was to come to a realization that I really didn't need anything outside, but I had to look inside to find what I really needed to become happy, joyous, and free in my life. Yeah. And I think that's led me to a path of clean living, and just sobriety and clarity and all the things that come with having a sober lifestyle. And my surfing has gotten better. The music and the bands I play in is the best it's ever been. My skateboarding is really good still. And, as my friends and peers fell to the side, and even some of them are dying, falling off. Like if you look at a picture of the Z-Boys, it's like that movie where the faces start disappearing. Yeah. Well, half the crew's gone, And so I guess as far as like what I see, what my mission in life is to carry on that attitude, that tradition, and that approach to surfing, skateboarding, music, fashion, everything that the world kind of looks to skateboarding culture for. Yeah. I'm like at the head of the pack, like the first guy on the trail, still taking steps forward. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we're still blazing a trail. So to be a 62-year-old professional skateboarder is almost miraculous. My dad told me straight to my face, there's no future in that when I said I'm going to be a professional skateboarder, and he knew nothing other than what he did, the 9-to-5 job thing, and wanted that for me, but wanted a better life for me, but didn't realize that my dreams were going in a completely different direction than what his dreams were like when he was 19.
Well, I've known you for 20 years. We've lived next to each other for 20 years. And you've lived a pretty remarkable life as far as I'm concerned. You get up every morning without fail. You're at the beach surfing. You're back here by 9.
That's my cross training. I cross train with surfing. But I find that as far as my cross training with surfing is, the better that I surf and the better my days are with my surfing, the easier my skateboarding is. And I'm not falling as much and stuff, because when you get older and you fall, it hurts more and you don't heal as fast. Right. You know what I'm saying? So you want to refine your technique to the point to where you fall as little as possible. Right. I mean, the kids go out there, you see a guy like Paul Rodriguez or even younger, those guys can take like 10 falls a day, get up and have a few bruises and scrapes. It's no big deal. They go have a few beers, it's all good, blah, blah, blah. They laugh it off. That's how I was when I was their age as well. Right. And I think that's why drugs and alcohol at a young age worked for me too. Right. It did. It worked for me for a long time. And then I found as my life got unmanageable and it started to affect my the inner spirit in me started to become sick, like a malady, like a spiritual malady. Right. When that started to happen, I think the sickness kind of was from the inside. And that's why I'm saying looking for happiness on the outside for me doesn't work. Yeah. I mean, it's nice to have a nice car. It's nice to live in a nice neighborhood like we do. It's good. Basically, the simple things in my life are that, I got clothes on my back. I want like something healthy to sustain me and live off of, like, eating healthy and light meals for me is happening, especially at my age with my metabolism. But the bottom line is all of the really beautiful things in my life and all of the things that are really long-term come from the inside. It's like you got to clean out the inside in order to really have a beautiful life on the outside. Right. And that took a long time for me to learn. Because I always, whether things were good or bad, my drug of choice was alcohol. And then when I picked up that first drink, man, I was off and running again. So if it was like I won a championship or got a new girlfriend or whatever, okay, boom, let's have a drink. Right. If something bad happened, my dog died or I got in a car accident, whatever, boom, let's have a drink.
That's how we sell tequila. Hey, no matter what you're doing, whether someone died or you're happy or you're celebrating, tequila.
But that's part of, a lot of cultures too, though. And especially Latin culture, especially Latin culture. And tough guys can hold their drink and tough guys know how to drink and tough guys drink their tequila like real men and stuff like that. But I found for me, that was a facade because of the fact that I was allergic to alcohol because Well, I broke out in handcuffs just about every time I drank. But I had an allergy to alcohol like indigenous people do.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was that I had an obsession for it.
Right.
My mind obsessed over it. And then I always felt like to make it spiritual, I needed to use drugs. Right. I needed either cocaine or, LSD or whatever you got, man. We'd smoke angel dust with the lowriders down the parking lot.
My mouth water.
I know. You know what I mean? We were heavy partiers, And
it came with the culture. It came with the
we were rock and roll stars, but in our own little world,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of rock and roll stars couldn't even hang with us. We were tough kids. The Dogtown kids were super tough kids, and I was the leader of the pack. So it beat me up for a while because of the fact that as I got older, I couldn't process that stuff, that lifestyle as well. And when I found a place to where it was kind of like last house on the road kind of thing, was that people started to show up in my life that were there to help guide me in a spiritual direction, which involved clean living and sobriety and basically a solution to alcoholism, which I watched my dad die from, my grandfather died from, and everything. And the whole deal was, okay, this is where we break the cycle. So not only did I break the cycle for myself and my family, but I broke the cycle for professional skateboarders. Yeah. Because now people look at me and they're like, wow, this guy's like 14 years clean and sober. And like, look at him, and it's just like still skating. And they're just like, so that's kind of my mission now. That's not kind of my mission. If you want to know the truth, that is my number one priority in life right now. That's my mission, is to carry that message to the most sordid place on earth through being a skateboarder and a surfer and all that, and let them know. And, regardless, I'm not a hater when it comes to drugs and alcohol. As a matter of fact, I love drugs and alcohol. Right. I just don't use them myself because I know that what it does for me now is that it basically takes me to a dark place and it pollutes everything in my life I feel that is pure. And the pure essence of life of being a surfer and a skateboarder is about doing it clean and sober and getting that natural high that gives you this feeling of elation. There's grandfathers and fathers now taking their kids to the skate park and they're all skating together and stuff.
Right.
Or, like the things that they do, to market the skateboarding lifestyle, whether it be extreme games, things, the Olympics wanting to be a part of it now. And regardless of what's going on with COVID and all that stuff, and don't get me wrong, I have respect, for this virus. It's no joke. Absolutely. It's like taking some people out and stuff. But, the skate parks are still crowded, man. They had to put dirt and sand inside the skate park at Venice to stop the kids from skating down there, the social distancing thing, So, skateboarders are still as rebellious as ever, I hate to say, but at the same time, it's like, I feel like that healthy lifestyle with the sunshine and the fresh air and all that, we're not immune to this, but we alleviate our chances of taking on any type of like illness and disease, and a lot of times by just staying active.
Yeah, you're super healthy. Like Tootie's about beer and a ham sandwich. That's what he gets all fired up about that. Prosciutto.
I'll take a ham. It's a form of ham.
The Italians, they love the prosciutto too.
They love the prosciutto, although I'm Mexican, but it's still kind of.
It's okay. Mexicans like their pork too. It starts with the chicharrones and
he's an honorary Italian.
Goes all the way up to Mexican prosciutto.
You have an amazing wife. You have an amazing partner.
Yeah, Katie Rodriguez. She's amazing.
You got Katie Rodriguez, who in her own right is remarkable talent.
She's a celebrity in the fashion world.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She doesn't take the celebrity stuff to the level that she likes because she's not really hungry for that type of notoriety. But underneath it all, if you research, especially Resurrection,
and
her business is really like just an amazing entrepreneurial adventure that she's been on for years.
It's
for
the
25 years.
Highest level of fashion, dude. The highest
vintage
level of
couture.
Fashion.
It's vintage couture.
Really remarkable.
Which is the bomb.
But you guys have an amazing life. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs listen to what we're doing in regards to film, in regards to moving forward in your businesses and your entrepreneurial struggles. It's not really about whether you succeed or fail in the businesses you try, but it's about what you learn when you're trying to start a business. And in your case, the business of what you were doing was exploding around you. So And your brand, that, by the way, that logo hasn't changed
it's had some alterations here and there, but I find that the original logo is still the best one.
Yeah, it's remarkable. You look at it and you say, that's a piece of art, dude.
It was designed by the guy, Eric Monson, that designed Devo's first album cover and stuff.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's awesome.
That's
the one with the Gino Vanelli golf ball thing and all that.
I know at some point when you were the all-around champion, when you continued to tour the world, when you started getting sponsors, you were about making money. You were about being paid for what you were doing.
I'm still about that, but the thing is, it's like I'm open to doing stuff for fair and for free if it's something that's geared towards helping other people.
Right.
But the bottom line is, like, when somebody wants to use my name or my likeness or my image or my 45 years as a professional skateboarder, my experience, then I got to get paid for that.
You got to get paid for that.
So the bottom line is, if you're compensated for, I think, doing a good job and sharing something, I think, that has a worth, that's the value, that's fair. But I will do things for free just depending on what's going on and where it's kind of like, a lot of times I just got to go with the gut feeling thing. Like you were talking about entrepreneurial spirit and stuff like that. A lot of times what it's about doing what you really feel in your heart and kind of in your gut, like that intuitive feeling, If you have something that's intuitive, usually it's connected to wisdom. And I think the wisdom only comes from making mistakes and going out there and taking chances, And so intuition, when it turns to wisdom, I think what it is really is you're making the right choices.
Yeah.
When you start making the right choices intuitively, that's wisdom.
Yeah.
And I only think for me, that only comes from the fact that I made so many mistakes.
Yeah.
And I had to pay some dues,
Yeah.
Some people pay the ultimate price by taking chances like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've got a few friends that didn't last.
Risk it all.
Well, a lot of them 27 years old.
Yeah.
Most of them, just like Rockstar thing, they died at 27 years old. I had a guy that I lived with for a while that was Clark Gable's stepson, this guy Bunker Spreckles. Died at 27 years old, multimillionaire, had everything in the world to live for and stuff. But, it's just like there's different circumstances involved in different people's lives. And when you make choices, and you're not to that stage in your life yet where intuitively you have a connection to wisdom, can be risky. You can risk your life in order to experience some of those situations.
Yeah.
And especially if you involve fast cars and drugs and alcohol, guns, big waves, flying in airplanes, helicopters, we name it all of those things on the outside, which we think are like living large, you know?
If you were to give advice to a young skateboarder, this is what this conversation has all boiled down to. You had the ability to, when you showed up somewhere, you had this talent that was undeniable that most people in the world didn't have. So when money started coming your way, when deals started coming your way, if you were a young skateboarder or anybody who had like a God-given talent that's going to earn you money, do you take on all things or do you focus on the sponsor money? Do you focus on like your own business? Because I think doing it all is probably not the right thing.
I think it's back to what's going on just right now in COVID. You focus on the essentials. You don't focus on like this big vision of grandeur, like you're going to be like the next like Kanye West of skateboarding or whatever.
Right.
You focus on the basic essentials, which is you got food, you got shelter, you got a decent vehicle to get around because if you're living in LA, your family's taken care of. It's almost like a less is more thing. But you got to have enough to feel comfortable. Don't get greedy. Ambition is a good thing.
Listen to this, Roberts. Don't get greedy.
You don't get greedy.
But ambition is a good thing, I think, though. Ambition.
Yeah.
But somebody, especially young men, can get so ambitious so fast that they cross the line. And where does ambition go when it crosses the line? It goes to greed. Okay, so if your ambition turns to greed, you might want to think about that. And get back to just being that ambitious guy that just needs the essential things in his life to be of the quality of life that he's used to living with.
So
and with me,
down.
Dude, I live a pretty comfortable life, but but the bottom line is I worked for that. I still work for it. I appreciate it.
You've come a long way, buddy.
Definitely, because I've lived in some pretty shabby conditions before. I lived in the back of my shop for a while, so with my dog, like sleeping on a freaking 2-foot wide cot.
Was that Earl?
Yeah, I've been through some. I've been through some divorces, believe me. But what happened was, even with my significant other, is that I had to prove myself that I was worthy of having a relationship and having a quality of life that was of that level, and appreciating, having gratitude, and that only comes from humility too.
Right.
Like you have to humble yourself sometimes, especially in the eyes of God, I would say, because we're not as important as we think we are sometimes.
Well,
the ego, that delusory perception of self, my ego, could be a real difficult thing for other people to live with, but also even for me to live with.
Right.
And so what I found was that if I could do something for somebody else and have a little bit more humility in my life and grace, that it made me more graceful. And when I'm graceful, I'm basically making dangerous things look really easy and doing them gracefully. Like when I took you to the skate park with me, I had a graceful day. It was a good day for me. So that's what I've kind of learned from skateboarding too. So I have to take that into business.
Yeah.
And with business, I have to learn also sometimes that less is more.
Right.
Like I want to keep things really essential and attached to the basics, because the basics are the most important thing, especially when it comes to making things work and making it fundamentally sound.
Right.
Like fundamentally all is well, then it's all good.
Right.
And that's what my board company represents. It's like I've taken inspiration from the past, put it into the present in order to help create the future. Okay. Like my boards are all influenced by things that I loved as a kid.
Right.
Like the essentials of surfing, skateboarding, I would say a little bit of rock and roll lifestyle and like all those things. And when you incorporate that into a brand, which is my company, Alva, and I've shared that with Vans, I've shared that with my other sponsors, even with Fender, when I did a guitar with them, we incorporated all of those things that I'm enthusiastic about and that I still like to use in expressing myself even today. Then it worked. It became something marketable, and it felt natural though. It felt organic. It didn't feel forced.
Well, that's what people want. They want to get some of the glory from your glory days in a product that they're getting from you now.
I think they want something that's real too though, but something that works.
Yeah.
And something that doesn't necessarily get too far away from the roots.
Yeah.
From the foundation, because the roots are important. Without the roots, the tree dies, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Rastafarians, the reggae music guys that sing with conscious lyrics, the conscious lyrics that they exemplify through their music, they always sing about that, like where they're saying, you've got to water the roots, you got to keep it real, you got to be true to yourself. And I feel like a lot of times, especially in music and stuff like that, it's like the music that I like is usually where it exemplifies something like that, especially if the singer, the lead man or the diva of the group is singing about something that's important, that has some significance to life in a really meaningful way. I find that as like spiritual. I think that's why music is so spiritual. Yeah. Like if you I was listening to Aretha Franklin this morning and stuff. I mean, the message is loud and clear.
Yeah.
So through my actions, I can lead and carry that message much louder than words.
So now your business is all about sort of like being really centered about everything that you're
and about just pushing the envelope to the next and showing people like, what? Really, age is not that big of a thing. It's like, it's really about where is your heart at? But you know what? I just tell the kids, I say, do it because you love it.
Yeah.
Do it because it's fun. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, go out there and use the pure essence of why you love skateboarding and that feeling you get from it to go into business. Don't go out there thinking you're going to be the next multi-billionaire or the next Tony Hawk or whatever, because Tony Hawk's 1 in a million.
Right.
He was in the right place at the right time, just like how I was. And the level of commercialism that he tapped into is probably never even going to happen again.
Right.
And, the Olympics, we'll see what happens with that kind of stuff. I'll tell you one thing, the Olympics needs us more than we need them. Right. There's no doubt in my mind that they need us to get to the youth more than we need them. Skateboarding is as big as ever, and it always will be, and it'll continue to grow, and it'll continue to be super popular with kids because of the freedom that it gives kids.
Right.
That spiritual connection to freedom is priceless, but people want to tap into that. They want to make money off it. They want to sell video games. They want kids to watch TV. They want to make movies about it. They want to capitalize off of it.
Yeah.
And you know what? More power to them. Who am I to say that that's wrong? Who am I to say that that's bullshit,
Right.
Because the bottom line is I did it when I was 19.
Right.
but I never sold out, and I never sold out what I believed in. And I've never sold surfing and skateboarding out. I've never sold it out. I've always kept it close to my heart and kept it close to home, literally. And that's why it works for me. And that's why when people look to me for direction, the best way that I can show who I am and what I believe in is just through my actions. I don't get involved in politics, any of that stuff. It's just, I just put out a positive message to everybody.
It's about the passion, Robert. See, I'm going to bring it back to filmmaking. The passion, the love for something where you're, simple. He kept it simple. Alva, the brand, simple.
Yeah. And you still have your skateboard company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Do you make surfboards?
I make surfboards. I make skateboards. I do some soft goods. I'm expanding the soft goods stuff with Katie right now because we find that the profit margin's bigger in that. And it's really simple because of the lifestyle. The capacity of my brand now being a lifestyle thing is that I can cross over into a lot of different things, including fashion. So that's good because fashion is more lucrative because of the fact that you can make more of it and a bigger profit margin in soft goods than you can hard goods.
Right.
But the hard goods is important in my business because the hard goods is the backbone of the business. Right. So I have to always stick to making a high performance, good price and quality hard goods line.
Because that's the in, right? As you
that's the backbone.
Board, yeah,
that's your spine. That's your spine.
Then you start branching out.
But then there's shoes with Vans, there's guitars with Fender, there's trucks, like you can do like that hold the wheels to the boards. The trucks are like Independence, my sponsor. So doing a truck with the Indy, stuff like that. Like all of those things in the future are possible. But the bottom line for me is that the brand is pure of its essence and that it comes from a hard goods based company.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think you do that. So where do people find your boards at? If people want to buy a board or a shirt or whatever they want
Online's the best thing as far as like Alva goes.
Is it at TonyAlva.com?
It's just Alva Skates.
Alva Skates.
Yeah. It's connected to my Instagram is the Tony Alva 1957. And then I do a lot of stuff basically connected to Vans is my biggest sponsor. So as far as like having a day job, it's connected to what I do with Steve Van Doren with Vans.
Right.
Is I promote Vans. I've had signature shoes with Vans. I endorse Vans whether my name's on it or not because it is Vans and because I believe in them and they believe in me. And I get paid not only royalties from things that I help them sell, but I also get a salary from them. So I'm like a team player when it comes to Vans. But with Alva's my own business and it's what I do with the assistance of a few people that are like family to me, And then on the side, my hobby and my passion and a lot of my enthusiasm goes into music, which is I play bass guitar in a band.
I've been meaning to hear you play.
In a rock band called His Eyes Have Fangs. Everything's online just like it is with Alva, and you can check it out, even buy our record, through the internet. But we play live, and when we're ready to play live, it'll be when everything is safe and sound and it's ready to get back out there and live venues start to
gotta be careful,
start to have live music again.
Yeah. We talked about you guys being at the nucleus of the most incredible skateboarding business in history. Something that started it all, the center of what ended up becoming a multi-trillion-dollar business now. But
yeah, it's funny that I used to say it's $1 billion, but it is probably
trillions now.
Wow,
but what's amazing about where you guys were is that, again, you did it from a pure place. So you were skateboarding, you were surfing, you guys were having fun. And then this business came in. And a lot of the people that were skateboarding at that time didn't appreciate the idea that businesses were coming in saying, okay, you have to be here at a certain time. You got to put on a certain shirt. You got to wear a certain kind of shoe. You got to act a certain way. You can't be part. So all of these rules came in.
That's why we went through all of that and then ended up starting our own businesses.
But you dealt with that pretty well. I mean, you were sort of a business.
Well, I rode for a team where my heroes were on that team at the same time, guys like Torger Johnson and stuff. So you were
good with it.
So when I ended up beating them in competition, but riding for the same team, I was like, dude, it's time to move on.
I'm out.
After that, it's like when you've already beat the guys that are the best guys on your team that were your heroes and stuff. And not that there was any love lost because there wasn't. But I just felt like, you know what? It's time. Right. It's time for me to take a step in a different direction. And that's when I met my partner that I started my business with. And I think it's similar to like just when you hit a bottom too, when it comes to like where I'm at spiritually, it's like God is constantly doing for me what I could never do for myself. Right. Okay, what happens is people, places, and things start appearing in your life that wouldn't have normally just shown up there. But you got to know what to do with those situations and make the right decision. So what happened was, even at a young age, intuitively, I knew it's time.
Right.
It's time for me to do my own fucking thing, dude.
Right.
Stop making money for other people. Stop listening and having them tell you what they think you should do when you know what in your gut feeling what the next thing for you to do is. And for me, it was to start Alva.
You've always been super solid, dude, in the 20 years I've known you. I know that
Thank you.
I know that a lot of people don't, they burn bright and they fade out quick. Is there people that you met through your travels that could have been the biggest and the best ever that just didn't make it out of?
I think Christian was one of them, but they ended up in prison instead because he was going neck to neck, toe to toe with Tony Hawk at the time. So Christian's definitely one of them.
Was that a losing proposition going against Tony Hawk?
No, he was better, dude.
Oh,
he
really?
was, yeah.
I think that Christian had a better style and was more marketable and was more flamboyant. I think he could have been probably the more commercial success because of the fact that he had that rock star charisma.
Wow.
Yeah. That was my first board.
But Tony Hawk
That was
always,
your first board?
Yeah, Tony Hawk always had the determination, the perseverance as a skateboarder, but also the technical aspect to his skateboarding was unsurpassed at the time.
Yeah.
And I think Tony Hawk's courageous. He has just the will to just go out and try and do something that nobody's ever done before, and to do it and over repetitively until he accomplishes it.
Yeah.
So that skateboarder spirit in Tony Hawk is undeniable.
Yeah.
He might not be the most flamboyant and stylish person in the world, but the bottom line is he did something that nobody had ever done before, and then became that perfectly marketable crossover commercial success that he's been. And you got to give him credit for that.
Yeah.
And he still does it to this day. And it's pretty incredible, to watch and to see like where a guy like Tony Hawk has, where he came from and where he's gone and where he's at. And I have a lot of respect for him and stuff. Would I want to trade shoes with him? Would I want to be in his place? No. There's absolutely no envy or no jealousy in my world when it comes to that. With Christian, I could only say Christian can answer for himself, but I think he's comfortable with who he is. And there's a moment in your life where the self-realization really comes from knowing who you are, what you are.
Well, you got to be happy with being a legend, and
to a certain extent, the anonymity can be a little harsh sometimes,
but you paved the way for an incredible business that's going to be around, past us. It'll go on forever and ever. And
well, I think the interesting thing will be like when I'm not even here anymore, and to see what where the brand goes, and just like one day at a time, I'm going to live in it and just enjoy it and take it to the next level by just being pure to the game, being true to the game. But the bottom line is, my son or daughter, who knows where they could take it in the future, if they decide to take the business and take it to the next level. Meanwhile, just like I said, all I got is today, I'm not living in yesterday. It's gone. I'm not worrying about tomorrow. That's a dream. But I know if I live good today, tomorrow is like an extension of a happy story of a good dream.
I know one thing for sure. You'll be up heading towards Santa Monica in the
I'll be surfing. I'll probably be surfing tomorrow.
Get aboard. Go with them, Robert.
I'll think about it.
That's like if you went out surfing with Tony Alva, you would go next level. You realize that, right?
Yeah.
Well, today is really what's cool about our neighborhood where we live right now is really cool is that we can go to any other canyon just in our neighborhood right there and just kind of take a walk outside of the city, but be close to the city, but be in nature and stuff. And I find like even today, instead of going surfing, I just figured, you know what, I'm going to stay close to home and do this project that Mark asked me to be involved in. But I just took a walk in Franklin Canyon, through like some paths that I was familiar with. And just, it gives me a sense of serenity and kind of like just walking barefoot through anything. It kind of puts you in contact with that vibe, that the earth gives, and we want to be in contact with that as Mexicans are indigenous people, and we just have to know that where we came from, that salt of the earth feeling is important, and to retain that and to know where we came from and not to get too far away from culturally what we represent. And what we represent, it's like what you guys talked about, it's the passion, Latin people are passionate. We're passionate about everything we do. And when we carry that passion even into countries where they're more demure, like if I go to Japan where people are just so reserved, but so respectful and stuff, and they see that passion that you have as a Latino, you got to share that with people.
Yeah, you do.
And you got to share it with them and just open up even the shyest Japanese kids to that Latin passion and stuff and show them like, look, you can have this too, but you got to reach out and you got to take it.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to to live dangerously.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to go out there and go for it, man.
Robert didn't want to be a radio or a podcast host, and I saw his potential, and I created this show.
Good.
And I said, "You're gonna lead it," and he was like, "I don't know, Tootie, I don't know." And now look at him. He's a professional.
Órale.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Órale.
But look, dude, I think that one thing that people could take away for sure is that if you have talent, and if
that
you
I
want,
clearly don't have.
He has like Kardashian talent.
yeah, he really does. Yeah,
wow.
you do. Yeah.
It's kind of like it's
You're
marketable,
beautiful
but
like yeah. Not sure what to do with
I'll
it.
send you some of my stuff, Tony.
it's not a horse and pony show. It's like it's more about beauty.
Yeah.
It's about beauty.
I'll take it then.
It's about beauty.
He's
But if-
releasing his sex tape next week.
If you're out there, keep it simple.
Yeah.
Don't grow so fast.
Yep.
Stay authentic to what it is that you've created, and work hard to just stay within yourself. I think the key for all of us, is that anything's possible.
Definitely.
And likely.
That's what Larry Bertelman said. One of the surfers that we looked through,
Yeah.
for moves on skateboarding is when he was surfing. He said anything is possible, and we incorporated that into our skateboarding attitude. So that's a good one. Anything is possible.
Anything's possible, and you're probably going to end up imagining where your life will go, and you'll probably end up getting there. So take it slow, relax, take it easy, be a smart businessman.
Stay true to the game, but be ambitious.
You heard it here from Tony Alva, man.
Oh, and last but not least, style is everything.
Hey,
That's right. Here we go.
And that you haven't lost. That you haven't
Style
lost.
is everything. Have good style. Have good style.
We'll chop it up again with Tony Alva in the future. He's got a lot more life to live.
Maybe I'll bring Christian Asoy with me next time.
Oh, that'd be fun.
That would
He's
be
your
great.
neighbor. Just pop in every Tuesday.
He's my brother. He'll show up. He would love. He's a bit of a ham too, because if I mention it,
Is he your guy?
Yeah.
I'll get the ham bone going on, and we'll just be
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, come on, Christian. We're gonna be like doing something together that's gonna go like international."
That'd be
flavor.
fun. But definitely thank you, Tony, for being
No
here.
problem.
Thank you for imparting your
Con
knowledge.
mucho gusto conocerle.
Gracias.
Órale.
I think we learned a lot today. So take it easy, and we'll see you next time on Let's Get Into Entertainment, the business of entertainment.
That's right.
I like
Robert.
that.
Very good.
There you go.